The worst places in the UK to have a child with special education needs. We're going to read into this exclusive piece with iNews, you guys. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here, an exclusive from iNews with the headline that the worst place in the UK to have a child with special education needs. The exclusive reveals that in 2022, the percentage of vital education, health and care plans produced within the legal time limit in the North East of England range from 98% to only 13%. Guys, while you're here, make sure you hit the like button and share this across social media so others are notified of this video. So, special education needs is something really, really important. I don't know if I would have classed myself with somebody who had special education needs. I had EBD, which was emotional behavior difficulties. So I ended up going to a special school. I got pulled out of secondary school because of my issues, and that education that I got in the special school that I had made a massive difference. And I think if I had continued in the same school, probably would have been a very different projectual path to where I am now. Obviously everywhere in the country has a different level of special education. Some may even have none. But I think it's also really important that people have that. Now, granted, yes, I am someone who has been pretty much in and around London or outside of London of sorts, so the availability for those needs is a lot easier than, let's say, for places maybe up north or south of England or southern even. I don't know, I can't speak on Scotland or Wales in particular, but I think it's pretty confident to say that it's much easier to get that kind of special education needs if you are living in or around London or outside it, because there would probably be more availability. But obviously, as it says here, northeast of England, that's a major problem. That's a huge amount of young children's futures gone, or and you're trying to salvage these children's futures because they're going to a basic school, which is kind of like, and it's not giving them the extra care that these kids need. That additional care that kids need, as opposed to just being thrown in the classroom and expecting to be taught everything. And obviously, like nowadays, obviously with how difficult it is for teachers, understandably so, especially when their classrooms are now some of the classrooms are much bigger. It's very hard to manage an individual child, especially when you have quite a huge amount of children within that classroom. It's extremely difficult for them. Obviously, some schools still have assistant and substitute assistant teachers, which obviously is a massive difference and it's really helpful to them. But there are obviously some cases where they just cannot. Some schools just simply cannot afford that assistant teacher, or they don't have essentials what they need. And we're talking we're just talking just as much about normal kids here, but this is more specifically about the special education needs and how much they need that extra care. And it's easy always to say that, oh, maybe the parents aren't doing this and they aren't doing that and they've had that, but I'm not blaming schools on this in particular. My concern is about what kind of policies, what kind of actions, that not just what the new government is going to be introducing, what the previous government has been doing. Well, the Conservatives have been in party for 14 years. What did the previous Labour government been doing to ensure that special education needs kids are getting that extra care and education that they need, that extra care, because you have to give a bit more. You have to give a bit more time to them. You got to give a bit more one-to-one with them, because if you don't, it can significantly damage their futures. And it's really, really important that we do not leave these kids out, because some people may try to argue this case that, oh, it's a small minority, or if it's not a big percentage of them, that's not right in any way, shape or form. You should not discriminate from kids, from those who have special education needs. Every single child matters. Every single future matters. As Tony Blair once said, education, education, education. So let's read into this exclusive, you guys. So, new research laid bare the postcode lottery faced by children with special needs and disabilities, SEND. In 2022, the percentage of vital education, health and care plans, the EHCP, produced within 20 weeks in the North East of England ranged from 98% to only 13% the eye can reveal. Similar disparities are present in other regions such as the North West and Yorkshire and the Humber, according to a report by the Centre of Young Lives in the partnership with Child of the North. Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson said the special needs system is broken and is in desperate need of long-term renewal. We agree too far often education does not meet the needs of children with SEND, and too few EHCPs are delivered on time, she said. It comes as a report published by the Local Government Association, the LGA, and the County Councils Network, the CCN, on Thursday, said that £5 billion debt crisis of special education needs could bankrupt English councils. We've talked on the channel before, and I'm sure many of you have already been aware about the situation when it comes to the fundings of councils. Regardless of the situation that councils are in, these kids must not be left behind. This needs to be addressed as soon as possible. The crisis comes from a failure to properly fund a huge increase in spending for SEND services in the past decade, triggering an existential crisis for some councils. Apologies for the beeping. This is tied into austerity that we have talked about on many occasions. But is this something we can firmly blame at the door of the Conservatives? I do think, there is a part of that has to be blamed, because I don't think our education system is not perfect. But is it as bad as is this bad under Tony Blair? I don't think so. I think the whole austerity and cutting back has harmed our children's future significantly, and of course, as we've talked about here numerous times on this channel, has harmed the education of our children. Government statistics show 500,000 more children are now identified as having special education needs since reforms to the SEND system in 2014, increasing pressure on councils across the country. Former Children's Commissioner Anne Longfield said there are extreme differences in how long it takes children to access support, adding that longer waits negatively impacts attendance. Yes, this is a massive problem. If they don't get that additional support, it's much difficult for the parents, it's much difficult for the child, and just creates more unnecessary pressure on the parents, and it obviously can deeply impact that child, and obviously it makes that child uncomfortable about wanting to go to school if that child is not comfortable in that particular school that they're normally in, whether it's them being bullied or whatever it may be the case. I know every child's case is different, but that extra support, like I've said, is really, really fundamental and can have massive long-lasting damage on them. So this source here, this graph is from the gov.uk. This is the EHC plans processed within 20 weeks. So you have here from 2022 and 2023 there. So North East Gateshead was 98.5%. And in 2023, that's gone down to 86.9%. So you can see it's a drop there. Newcastle upon Tyne, 12.8%, down to 6.5%. And in the Northwest, Lancashire, 98.6%. That's gone down to 80.2%. Saffron 27.4% to 40.4%. So that's actually had an increase there. So that's an increase there, which is a very good sign there. Yorkshire and the Humber, Caffaldale 99.4% to 97.8%. And in Leeds 12.3% to 8.4%. So there is obviously Saffron there obviously had an increase, which is a good sign. Gateshead, Lancashire and Caffaldale have very high percentages there. But overall in England, it's about half, 50%. So nothing, it's not really something that, shall we say, enough is being done about it. It's not always just about throwing money at these problems. It's about being able to deal with these complex issues and how we can simplify it, not just for the government when it comes to allocating fundings and needs to these councils that they need, simplifying it for parents to be able to go where they need to go, making it easy for teachers Apologies, making it easier for teachers to be making it easier for teachers when it comes to this as well, to be able to have that established connections, obviously, between teachers, schools, councils, government, parents, so that they're all there interlinked, and to be able to do that, obviously, on a community basis, a consensual basis. That communication, obviously, the word communication plays a vital role in this too. So it's not just a case of obviously just throwing money at the problem. Do we have a clear plan of how to tackle this crisis to ensure that the vast majority of those with SDND are getting what they need? And I think that's really, really lots of questions there. So Miss Longfield, who founded the Centre for Young Lives, said that some people have to wait literally years to get through that process, meaning that they won't be in school often enough, or they won't be thriving in school. They aren't getting the education which is their a right, there's a right. The system is shutting them out because it is not able to cope with them. Yeah, and because the system aren't able to cope, the system can't help them. So they're stuck in the long grass. Mrs. Longfield described the process of getting an EHPC as traumatic and called on the government to overhaul it, replacing it with early intervention. The vast majority of EHPCs for children with special needs are being processed late in some parts of the UK, with Newcastle upon Tyne and Leeds being some of the worst offenders. Councils have a legal time limit of 20 weeks in most cases to issue an EHPC after a parent or school applies for one. But in 2022, only 49% of EHPCs were produced within the 20-week statutory limits, rising by just 1% point in 2023. The eye can reveal that in Newcastle upon Tyne, just 12.8% of EHPC requests were processed in time in 2022, dropping to 6.5% in 2023, according to data from the Department of Education. In comparison, just across the river in Gateshead, the rate was 98.5% in 2022 and 86.9% in 2023. Leeds shares similarity low rates with Newcastle upon Tyne, which is 12.3% of EHPC applications processed with the legal time limit of in 2022, decreasing to 8.4% in 2023. But in nearby Cafferdale, there was a much higher rate of 99.4% in 2022 and 97.8% in 2023. So just for some context, what is an EHPC? So an EHPC is a legal document that describes a child or a young person's special education, health, or social care needs, and parents must obtain one to be able to claim funding to provide that care. Examples of extra support might include one-to-one lesson times or to help learn at home for those with such complex needs that the school is unsuitable. Parents have previously revealed how the process of applying is stressful and lengthy, and that leaving their children is neglected and falling behind in school. This is not right. I understand. This needs to be more easier for some. Now, some of the arguments that maybe people will have in the comments is that if you make it too easy, you open up the door for some parents to take advantage of the situation, which is why you would put the child in front of doctors and experts on these matters that will be able to determine whether that child is in need of that. So it is not just a case of, and I'm sure they already do this to a certain extent, so that it's not just a case of they literally fill out a form and all of a sudden bang, they get the funding. No, that's not how it works, guys. But what I'm saying is that they should be a process as much more simple for them. Yes, of course, they should be obviously having experts looking at the child to be able to determine, yes, this child definitely has these issues and this is what we can do, and then go from there, and not just literally taking it from the words of the parents, but actually seeing the child, seeing how it reacts to certain things, and go from that process. So that would be the way to obviously do it. But this obviously here, I think the stressful and lengthy part, this is something that needs to be tackled as well to make it easier for those who definitely have them. I understand the risk that some people may say that there may be potential people abuse, but I also think that if you put them in front of people with expertise, it means those who are obviously trying to cheat the system, it's much harder for them to do so. The report concludes that there is a clear postcode lottery in the timelines in which EHC plans are produced. It says there are also considerable vulnerability in the quality of EHC plans, both across and sometimes even with local authorities. Often plans are vague and do not accurately describe the individual needs. Many plans appear generic and lack a specific recommendation for support. This can be frustrating for both families and schools, and in some cases school staff and families can also feel it takes too long for plans to be communicated, meaning that CPYs, that's children and and young people's needs, are not effectively met in the interim. Gillian Doffery, co-founder of SEND Action, said there is a huge disparity in compliance with the statutory time limit for EHPCs, with some local authorities meeting deadlines and failing to complete any plans with some legal timescale. She told the Eye that failure to meet time limit delays and access to provision disabled children require to meet their needs, adversely affecting academic and other outcomes and contributing to escalating needs as well as exclusions and difficulties with attendance. But it's not just the timelessness of the EHCPs, but it's important. Quality matters too. It's vital that appropriate provisions is clearly specific, qualified and delivered, otherwise plans are worthless. Sue Peacock, a consultant offering a support service parents to SEND children in the rural, said one of the EHCPs she is currently handling has taken 65 weeks so far, 10 months slower than the legal time limit. That's just not good enough. That's just not good enough. She told the Eye the delays have had an absolute devastating impact on families. With these delays, I'm seeing more and more children experience the kind of anxiety-based attendance issues on some children stop attending altogether, she said. Ms. Peacock continued that a large majority of the families that started by wanting the support in mainstream schools regrettably have to reconsider, and the children do not end up requiring a special schools placement. And she added that would be wholly avoidable with a timely intervention. Private schools were warned that the government's plans to tax private school fees could exacerbate some of these issues facing pupils with special education needs. I don't... at the moment, I find it very hard to... Like, the reason... I've said this before, and I've said this again. As for the part here about special education needs, I don't know how true this is. And some of you guys may have some fair points in the comments down below on this, on whether the private school fees will have the taxing of private school fees on special education needs. But regardless, if you are somebody who has their child in private education and you put a lot of your own money into that private education for that child, surely you would have also the money for them for the special education needs. Or you would have prioritized ensuring that they get the special education needs before anything else to ensure that they have the best quality of life in the future. Surely not, right? So I'm having a very hard time believing that the government's plans to tax private school fees is going to affect special education needs. So I have a very hard time understanding that. Census data from the Independent School Council, the ICS, shared exclusively with the Eye in May, showed that 111,154 pupils received SDND. Again, that's special education needs and disabilities, support in private school in 2024. And that was an increase of 7.5% from last year and up 67% from on a decade ago. So it's increased. So this was on the last Conservative government. Remember that. The government has stressed that its 20% VAT on fees will not hit pupils with special education needs who have private school place funded by the state through the education, health and care plans. So the government have put this on the record. So if they fail that, then obviously you can come back on that. These plans are statutory documents stipulating and guaranteeing the extra support that such children and young people are entitled to, but only 7,646 of the pupils receiving SDND support at private schools have the plans, and that ISCs raised the alarms about the other 103,508. Labour have not outlined a clear timetable for its flagship policy, but the independent sector has been working under the assumption that it was likely to be introduced in September 2025. However, Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson has refused to rule out introducing the policy in January, meaning fees could soar by up to 20% in the new year. She also said that we agree that far too often education does not meet the needs of children with SDND and far too few EHCPs are delivered on time. This government will take a different approach, whether it's transforming the early years to intervene earlier, deliver better outcomes for children, or launching our curriculum and assessment review to put high and rising standards and inclusion together at the heart of every school. We will restore parents trusting in their child and get the support they need in mainstream school, if that is the right place for them. And that will always be a place in special schools for children with the most complex needs. We have a broken system in a desperate need of a long-term renewal. I won't make false promises. Changes won't feel as quick as parents or I would like. I will make sure our approach is fully planned and delivered in concert with parents, schools, councils, and everyone who works with children. And this last bit here. So, what have the worst performing councils have said with regards to this? So, spokesperson for Newcastle City Councils, the increased number of children with EHCPs is a growing and significant issue for councils across the country. They said Newcastle City Council has seen an significant increase in the request for statutory assessment over the last 2 years, which is impacting our processing time. We are working hard to rectify these issues and are committed to supporting all the children and young children to achieve their potential and their best start in life. They added that families and schools can access a range of services to support children while they wait, and a significant work has been undertaken to improve SDND provision. This includes increased educational psychology support, expanding capabilities at special schools, and improved diagnostic pathways. Spokesperson for Saffron Council said it is committed to reducing the times families wait for an EHCP, but they have a higher than average demand that increases each year. The council said it expanded its special education needs team and has created over 100 new SDN school places from September to address the national shortage. Spokesperson for Leeds Council said the area has seen a significant demand pressure over EHPCs, issuing over 900 last year, nearly 3 times as many in 2022. And they said that the council continues to invest significantly in improving our ways of working and has started a significant transformation program which is now underway. We understand the impact that these delays on our children and families and are absolutely committed to working to improve these outcomes. Rural Council's Director for Children's Family and Education, Elizabeth Hardley, said, "We have a robust improvement plan for EHPCs approved by the Department of Education and currently in place, and we will continue to push ahead in the getting better right across our SDND services for children and families in rural who need this vital help. We are increasing service capacity across local area services and working consistently with our parent-carer forum to drive improvement. In recent years, Wirral has faced EHPC increased demands of 20% year on year. Many challenges lie ahead, not just with this government, but with parents and but with teachers, the education system. Without a shadow of a doubt, guys, we have a crisis in our education system. And of course, our special education needs is obviously one of those areas that needs attention and it needs addressing. Like everything, guys, this has been done. Many of it, whether you want to agree or not, a lot of it has played down to the fact of austerity has played a significant impact on the future of our children, whether they have needs or not. This has deeply affected state schools significantly. And more needs to be done. Obviously, how they will fund this, how they will fund the needs that are needed, how they will ensure that councils get everything that they need, the support that they need to give every single child that has special education needs the support they need. And hopefully they will make the process simpler. But I would still say, obviously, that there does need to be, in my opinion, needs to be simpler. As they've said, it is very difficult for them. And I understand the reasons and the threats about potential people abusing it. But I also think it is very important that it is simplified in such a way that if the evidence is there, if the parents have the evidence to show that their child has special education needs, then it should be simple for them. But what do you guys honestly think? What do you guys make of this piece about children with special education needs in the UK, particularly in England, in the north and north also of England? What do you guys make of maybe in the areas where you have with special education needs, or perhaps maybe you are a parent yourself that has children with special education needs, or you are someone who had special education needs when you were younger? Let me know your thoughts and more on all of these down in the comments section below. If you found this video interesting, please hit the like button, we greatly appreciate it. Share this across social media so others are notified of this video, and subscribe because it really does help support the channel. And if you want to go one step further, financially support me and the work that I do here, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p, or join me on Rumble or Patreon for exclusive content on those platforms. So thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.